I'll begin with an approval of the agenda as it was published with no changes or modifications. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Coleman. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor to approve the agenda as it was published from the dais? Public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes unanimously. I don't have anybody, I forgot to call a preacher. Do we have a preacher in the house to give an invocation? We do not have a. Mr. Norley, you want to come give us a prayer for, if you would stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, sir.
Dear Lord, I just want to thank you for this beautiful day you've given us. And, give all your commissioners up here tonight wisdom and seek your wisdom, Lord. I just want to thank you for everything you've given us and been with us. I want to pray for Israel tonight and may America stay strong with them, Lord. And just all these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Commissioner Clark. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Thank you, Mr. Norfleet, on these special meetings that kick me off my game. Normally I have somebody ahead of time. All right, we don't have any presentation, so we'll move to public announcements. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the commission about something that's not on the agenda tonight, you have 2 minutes to do so. Everybody here to speak to the one item on the agenda. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published? I have a motion from Commissioner Clark, second from Commissioner Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That'll take us to our public hearings ordinances. This is rezoning from agriculture A to plan development PD for the NC Ranch plan development. This is going to move the commission into a quasi-judicial. This means that the commission will stop being a legislative body and will become a judicial board, which means that we have to follow certain rules and adhere to a different standard of decision making. Primary rule most follow concerns testimony. The substantial and competent evidence standard must be met when the judicial board makes a decision. This standard states the following, and I quote, all public testimony taken under oath, everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. The giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record. I'm going to ask the attorney at this point to read into the record the ordinance by title.
Mr. Mayor, this is ordinance number 2024-14 LDR 23-06, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida relating to the rezoning of approximately 1,293 contiguous acres, more or less, pursuant to a petition by the property owner of said acreage, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from the Agricultural A zoning district to the Planned Development PD zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, more particularly described in Exhibit A, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, ma'am. At this point, I'm going to ask the clerk if you would please swear in the applicant, staff, and anybody wishing to participate or requesting to speak. If you think you might stand up and talk, if you just stand up and get sworn in, that'll save us from having to do it, come back and do it later.
Please state your name for the record, starting with your name, moving around. Judy Baker.
Mike Nick, John Halperis,
Francis Chandler Marina.
Brian Thomas, Jerry Diedenbach.
We have someone coming in the room, are you sure?
Ma'am, who just entered, are you going to request to speak tonight?
Most probably.
Would you please raise your hand and be sworn in? Thank you. If you could stand up and put your hand up and give you your name.
Marta Pedrosa. We have everyone?
Got one in the back there.
Okay. Do you hereby swear affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You have been duly sworn.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin, we need to disclose any ex parte communication and disclose whether any member physically inspected the property. Ex parte communication, remember, are any conversation or transmission of information that may have bearing or influence on any voting member's decision. Commissioner Coleman?
None.
Commissioner Clark?
None.
Commissioner Farnsworth? Commissioner Martin?
None.
I have none either, but I'm a non-voting mayor. Commissioner Mazon will be here, and I may need some advice about the commissioner coming in halfway through a quasi-judicial, depending on when he gets here. Okay, we're going to explain the order of presentations that we will follow for the item before us tonight. We're going to start with the staff overview, then we'll hear from the applicant with no time limit, then the staff report and recommendation, also with no time limit. I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status, so that's going to move us to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this tonight will have 3 minutes to do so. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to cross-examine. Staff can have the opportunity to cross-examine member decision-making body. Through the chair can ask questions of the staff, the applicant, or the participants, and then we'll hear final arguments. After final arguments, city attorney will advise decision-making bodies, applicable law and factual findings, and then we'll enter into deliberations. After deliberations, a vote will be taken to approve conditions, continue, or deny. That's what we're going to do. We'll start with the staff overview. Is that going to be you, John Paul? Come on down, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And should we read the ordinance title into the record? Did we already do so? Okay, great, awesome. So John Paul Perez with the Planning and Economic Development Department. The request before the commission tonight is the rezoning for the project known as NC Ranch Plan Development. This is a first reading of that ordinance, so you've seen a few items already. This is not going to be dissimilar to what you've seen in the past. This is the rezoning portion. We'll have a second reading follow this one. The order of my presentation, or the presentations tonight, will follow the quasi-judicial procedure. I will give an introduction to the request. The applicant will provide their presentation. Francis Marino with Fem by Design, the consultant retained by the city, will give her summary of her review of the petition, and then we'll close out with staff's recommendation. I'm also going to go into the development order for those things that don't get covered by the applicant. They have a pretty thorough presentation to provide, and I'm sure Jerry will go into many details. There may be some slides in my presentation. I'll just skip through them if they're already covered. So again, the commission tonight has already seen the future land use map amendment and the text amendment. Tonight we're just going to be talking about the rezoning. And what the rezoning examines or analyzes is the establishment of the uses that are going to be in the plan development, specific obligations that are going to be required of the developer, because plan development is kind of like a create your own adventure version of zoning, where they get to define their parameters opposed to them being previously laid out by the commission. So that is something that they work through with their design professionals and is reviewed with staff for compliance and relevance to the city regulations. As well as required public services that are going to be needed to facilitate the development over the life of it is something that we look at also in the development order. Just a quick timeline. This all started with public hearings back in October of 2023. We're here now, April 15th, with the first reading of the rezoning. If there are no changes or additional direction from the commission tonight, we would like to bring this back to the commission in the first commission hearing in May. This is a little advance notice. I'll go back over that when I close out. This is the city limits, the project identified in purple here, and the urban service area identified in red, showing that the project is wholly located within the urban service area. The list of petitioner, the list of parcel numbers, as well as the agents who are both present tonight, Patrice Boys and CHW professional consultants, Jerry Diedenbach being the design professional here for Trip Northlane. This is an aerial of the subject property, showing the current status of it. It's mainly cattle pasture. This is the summary of the request. In totality, it's 1,293 acres, a total of 4,500 dwelling units, 700,000 square feet of non-residential uses, and 250 assisted living facility beds. That will be the total of it. It gets broken down even further. And the planning horizon is 50 years, as established in the text amendment we approved this year. So, again, currently agriculture, proposing to rezone it to planned development, wholly located within the urban service area. So it is ready for that type of density and development type. located on US 2741. And before I turn it over to the applicant, I just wanted to go into the difference between a development order and a development agreement. Just so if there's any confusion about what precedes what, we can talk about that tonight. So a development order, also called a development permit in the Florida statutes, is any action really by a body or an agency that has the effect of permitting development. So in that, you usually define the parameters of that development as well, so how you're satisfying certain obligations. And they're typically for the development wholly, so it's considering every component of that development. Development agreements, very similar requirements to be in a development agreement. They will provide you with a legal description, the comprehensive plan compliance, et cetera. They're only valid for 30 years, and they're subject to periodic review. So they have to be reviewed every 12 months, which gives you an inclination that they're a little bit more closer to the construction than a development order would be. So a development order would be kind of, hey, I'm making my long-term goals right now, but they're not clearly defined. So I have these benchmarks that I want to satisfy. And when you get closer to construction time, you will then break out the development agreement, define those more succinctly and clear and true to what actually will be occurring. And then there will be a 12-month review cycle on those, just to make sure everybody's holding up their ends of the bargain, which that doesn't typically happen with a development order. Those are more subject to typical concurrency review cycles, which are 5-year cycles. And now I'm going to hand the clicker over to the applicant to do their presentation. Thank you.
Come on down, sir.
There we go. Good evening. Jerry Diedenbach, CHW Professional Consultants. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam
Good evening.
Attorney, members of the Commission, Madam Clerk. We are here, and I know he said we're having unlimited time, but we're going to do this in about 5 minutes because you have such familiarity with this from the recent approval of the land use amendment on second and final reading. So, as you know, we're processing two things, and we completed the land use amendment. Okay, so the large-scale comprehensive plan amendment, taking the land from agriculture to planned development, has occurred, as well as the text amendments, and those were reviewed by the state of Florida's Department of Commerce. So tonight we're here with the ungrayed out thing, which is the planned development, which is effectively placing a zoning map change upon the property. The intent is to create a master plan community that will last for the next 50 years. The size is 1,293.23 acres, and the density is 4,500 homes, roughly 3.48 dwelling units per acre overall, and 800,000 square feet of commercial in a town center type form. This will have 8 phases, 6 years apiece, which spans over the 50-year time window here. And the pace is generally 100 homes annually over the project's lifespan. So, as you know, we want to create a master plan community, and the intent is here to bring many of the things that currently don't exist in the city of Newberry to the city of Newberry. Yes, sir.
Got a 700,000
Is it between our packet and their packet?
Yeah.
The initial submittal, sorry, I had to bring this down a little bit. I just lost this gentleman right here. The original submittal said 800,000 square feet of non-residential. What was included in that was the assisted living facility beds. Since the development order relies on an exchange matrix, which is based on the number of trips generated, we broke out the ALF to be separate from that 800,000, leaving 700,000 square feet of non-residential uses, which will make up the office, commercial, and light industrial stuff. And, okay, cool.
Perfect answer. 100,000 square foot nursing home. There you go. So during the land use hearings, Mr. Norfleet testified to why he wants to see this here. And we really want to create a community where people can experience the amazing amenities here in the city of Newberry, as well as offer a safe place to gather as a community and to get a feel for the agricultural base of Newberry while also living in a master planned lifestyle community. So as you know, over the last several months, a little bit more than a year, we've been through the land use and zoning process. This was reviewed by the state of Florida, and you recently adopted on second and final reading the land use. So tonight, we're here to look at the zoning atlas. Okay? The phasing table has not changed from the way it was presented to you previously, and most specifically, over the 6-year period, it's approximately 100 homes per annum. And then on the bottom, you see that at phase 2, phase 4, and phase 5, the commercial will come in. So a lot of times communities talk about the chicken egg syndrome. Are you going to build the commercial first, or are you going to build the residential? We are going to build the residential in phases and get a congregate population of residents there before introducing the commercial. And then in the 4th phase, when we're done with that, approximately 2050, then the larger component of the commercial comes on. But by that time, we will cumulatively have a little bit over 1,500 homes out there at that point in time, almost 2,000. So the developer has proposed to provide biannual reporting to the city so that we can keep track of things that relate to concurrency: water, sewer, roadway capacity, traffic, and so forth. So that has all remained the same. So basically, you all have seen this at least a half dozen times, I would think. The subject property is just north of the city of Newberry, inside the corporate limits of the city, and inside the urban services area. The property had agricultural land use on it. It now has, on the future land use map, planned development. So the only zoning that correlates with this land use classification is, in fact, PD. So we are requesting at tonight's meeting that you take and remove the agricultural zoning from the property and place the planned development zoning upon the property, which correlates 1-to-1 to the underlying future land use that has been placed on the property. The property is still under a phased approach, 8 phases, 6 years per phase, and the zoning master plan is largely as you have seen it before, up on the screen here. And that's it. By virtue of this presentation, since this is a quasi-judicial public hearing, we would like to incorporate all previous information that was brought before this commission, all previous application materials, previous presentations, and our competent substantial evidence, just to keep it all in one big happy basket.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. John Paul, come on back up and give us staff's presentation and recommendation. This also technically has no time limit, but you can do with that as you will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're going to hand it over to Frances Moreno now with Fem by Design, so she can provide her findings.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you so much for having me here again this evening. My name is Frances Chandler Marino, and I have been retained by the city to provide a supplemental review of the NC Ranch PUD rezoning application. I prepared a written report to assess my findings along with the analysis associated with those findings. Those are included in your agenda package, and so that's been submitted to the record as evidence for this hearing.
Can I interrupt you just 1 second and just reiterate that due to the size and the scope of this project, our city staff having limited experience with that, that's why we retained you to bring you in so that we would have another third-party set of eyes, someone who is an expert on developments this size. So I just, again, want to compliment our staff for saying, hey, this would be one where we would all benefit from bringing in someone else to give us some advice. So now, proceed.
Thank you, sir. The standard that I used for the review of this rezoning action is whether or not it was consistent with your comprehensive plan, and for that I relied upon the standard of review in Florida statute. And I also prepared a compatibility assessment to ensure that the land uses and conditions could coexist over time. As has been mentioned, the proposed development is 1,293 acre mixed-use development. It is within the city of Newberry urban service area, and it includes 4,500 dwelling units, 700,000 square feet of non-residential, and a 250-bed assisted living facility. This is a summary of my findings. I will go through these. If you want any more detail, I can go through more of the detail of the report that I prepared and submitted to you, but this should give you an idea about those findings. The property is located within the city's urban service area, which means that it is approved under your comprehensive plan for urban uses. The comprehensive plan establishes clear timing for how you make approvals inside of your urban service area for those urban densities. And it allows for a binding development agreement to be executed by the city to provide facilities and services as a standard upon which you could allow urban development within this urban service area. When the comprehensive plan amendment for the planned development land use for this property was submitted and ultimately approved by this commission, it included policy SP 114, which required the binding development agreement. So it meets that standard for timing of your approving urban development within the urban service boundary. Planned development zoning is a permitted zoning district within the land use designation that has been assigned to it under the comprehensive plan. And the rezoning is consistent with the specific location policies for this property. When the applicant brought in the planned development, they didn't simply bring in a map amendment, they brought in policies that establish very specific conditions and standards under which the PD rezoning would be conducted and created. In the document that I prepared and submitted as my analysis, I have gone through each of those policies, policies objective SP1, policies SP 1.1 through 1.14, and found that the rezoning and its development order were in fact consistent with those. You can't even really see this on the screen, but there is a document. It goes with a table that goes item by item, policy by policy, and speaks to how that rezoning development order is in fact consistent with the policies you've already adopted for this project. It is my opinion that the proposed rezoning and the accompanying development order are consistent with the adopted city comprehensive plan.
All right. And in case we're dealing with just audio in the future, again, this is John Paul Perez, Planning and Economic Development Department. And we're getting back to the development order. I'm going to go over some of the standards in the development order and then provide you with staff's recommendation. Unfortunately, Jerry didn't touch on some of them, so you're going to have to listen to me now. I apologize about that. So in the process of doing the comprehensive plan stuff, we did reach out to all of the regional agencies that would have resources here in the city of Newberry that would be impacted by this development. Those include Florida Department of Transportation. I'm not going to list them all, but they're on the screen here, and some in acronym. GMD standing for Growth Management Department, EPD standing for Environmental Protection Department, Department of Commerce, Environmental Protection, State, North Florida Regional Planning Council, Swanee River Water Management District, and Alachua County School Board. But there were no objections to the request. Florida Department of Transportation wants to be incorporated into the review, so as each phase comes before this commission, it will also go to Florida Department of Transportation before you see it. So if there is a need for a widening of US 2741, it will happen, or it will be known before it comes back before the board. If there's a need for a deceleration lane or a left turn lane in the median, all of that will occur prior to the board hearing that. So those determinations will be made by FDOT as each phase comes up. School board, that's another big one. They do a 5- and 10-year plan for their facility planning. They reserve capacity at time of platting, and so we won't know what will be needed until we are at the final development plan stage, and that's the final plat or the construction plans. But final plat is when they actually reserve it, so that's at the end of each phase as far as like entitlements go. So that's not something we'll have a clear answer on until we get closer to that part as well. So Alachua County does regulate or have preemptions in local municipalities through the water quality. That's the only preemption power that they truly have in the state of Florida. And so they do preempt some of our regulations with water quality, be it irrigation or development near or on water bodies. We don't have many of those here, but this particular site does have some, what you call them, test pits or sinkholes that have water. Test pit mine? Phosphate mine, old phosphate. Yeah, and so there's water at the bottom of those, so the county does get involved in those types of developments, and there are some sinkholes on the site also that they've made us aware of, so we'll continue to engage them as the development progresses. All right. This reiterates some of the stuff that we just talked about, but traffic will be on a phase-by-phase basis. So each new phase that comes up, we will be looking at it. Schools, again, reserved at time of platting. Water and wastewater will be evaluated prior to the commencement of each phase. We have identified some off-site improvements that are going to be needed for water and wastewater. I'll show you the map of those and the conditions that are incorporated into the development order. Parks, we are in the process of also redoing our comprehensive plan. Part of that is our open space and recreation element. And with the open space and recreation element, we have adopted an older version of a level of service, which requires us to provide boat docks, places for fishing, things that we just don't typically have here, but are part of a standard formula that was adopted many years ago. We're going to be changing that level of service to be something that's more commensurate with the needs of the citizens of Newberry, be it a pickleball court or a gun range or whatever it may be. You know, that's what we're looking to identify, and it may be a more vanilla approach to that. But so parks, we will analyze that level of service need as each phase comes in, similar to the way we're handling the traffic. In emergency services, there is one set aside currently for a 2-acre site for a new station. That station's intended to handle up to 6 firemen, 1 engine, and 1 ambulance, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe 2 ambulances. I forgot how many. The county needs 1 for sure. I'm not sure if we need 1 as well. And then there's an option to purchase another 2-acre site if needed. The purpose for this is for our ISO rating. That's the insurance rating office, and we want to keep that number as low as possible, meaning that our residents will get lower cost on their home insurance because we maintain a higher level of operation or standards here. Level of development we've already covered. This is the exchange or equivalency matrix. Is the commission familiar, by a raise of hands, with what these do, or interested in learning more about them currently?
How long does that lesson take?
I can make it 20 seconds.
Give us the 20-second overview, because it sounds like something we need to know, but I'm not sure this is the appropriate moment to be educated on this.
For sure, yeah. I am not a school teacher, but I never pass up a teachable moment, and this is definitely one of them. This table gives you a bunch of ratios at which you can exchange trips. Trips are the number of automobiles that are generated on the road for each type of use, and we have a list of trips by the residential and the non-residential. The applicant is asking that they be able to exchange some of these for other ones, but it's going to be done on a trip-by-trip basis. So the actual trips or traffic that is approved in this development order will never exceed what's approved today, but it may change form. So the impact on the infrastructure stays the same. We did put one caveat in there: if the exchange results in a positive in impacts on other infrastructure, such as water, wastewater, or schools, or something to that effect, then it would need to come back to the board for consideration.
Everybody good with that? That's pretty good. Okay. A little over 20 seconds, but I'm going to let it pass because it was very concise.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I try to choose my words carefully. sometimes. This is the phasing schedule, which Jerry did show. I don't want to go into this too in depth, but I just wanted to point out 8 phases, and 2072 is when the 8th phase is intended to commence, just to give a perspective on how long this is going to take, a lifetime. I may not see this to completion.
Only in
Absolutely. Necessary studies and analyses, there's a lot of caveats baked into the development order for us requiring environmental studies at the commencement of each phase, traffic studies at the commencement of each phase. All of these is just to ensure that both staff, the applicant and the commission and the residents know that we're not relying on old data or irrelevant information to make decisions. This is all going to be current information we're making decisions on. And now I want to go into the residential lot types. I know this is of interest to the commission. So they've broken them up into different products they offer, is the best way I can describe it. So the cottage homes, and you can see a lot of these already in Tripp's Countryway. So he's looking to replicate that model, which has been very successful for him and for the city. People buy them up pretty quickly. So cottage homes, suburban detached homes, which would be your typical lots, estate detached homes, attached homes, which are townhomes or duplexes, then tiny homes. This is the table that's included in the development order. Unfortunately, the lot width turned blue on me, but you can see there the different sizes that are being offered, a 40-foot, a 60-foot, and a 75-foot. So the 40-foot is for the cottage-style homes. The suburban detached are 60 feet, which is your pretty standard or typical in a single-family district, and then 75 feet. And these are all minimums, by the way. They will vary in size, but they cannot go below those numbers. The larger lot being 75 feet, and we have some, because of the current status of this property, but all the properties around it still being agriculture, we are asking that some of the or the estate lots be located along the north of the property, where the urban service area boundary is, and so that impact on those neighbors on the other side of 46th Avenue is not as much as it would be if they're smaller, more intense homes, like you would see in Newberry Corners. Right. And non-residential is pretty standard, nothing too out of the ordinary there. The only difference is institutional maximum building height is 100 feet. Perimeter buffers. Again, this is insulating the development to have minimal impact on neighbors. There's a standard 25 feet buffer around the entire development. Along US 2741, because of the overlay district, there's a required 50-foot there. The northern perimeter on 46th Avenue will have the estate homes. And then there's also a caveat, no lot may encumber the perimeter buffer. So that perimeter buffer will exist, and then the lot will start. So there's that 25 feet minimum. And then in other areas, you won't. The effect is to reduce the fences right up on the road, so you're not looking at the back side of a fence of a home. You have at least 25 feet to put some landscaping there. Ignore it or manicure it, however you want to handle it, but there will be some plants to block the view. Yeah. This is the master utility plan. It's in a very conceptual stage at this point. These get more detailed as we go through each phase, and we start looking at those development agreements, because that's where we're going to start quantifying linear feet of pipe and dollars and other things that go with that. And unfortunately, this is hard to see, so I'm going to describe it in words, but this is one of the master wastewater lines. It'll be approximately 21,000 linear feet of pipe there, and the estimated cost today is $2.5 million. That'll increase as we go on with the development and construction costs increase. But effectively, this is connecting the southern portion of the development directly to our wastewater plant that is being upgraded to service from 0.56 million gallons per day to 1.2 million gallons per day. So this is the wastewater line that will connect directly to the property. It'll meander down 266, 337 to Southwest 18th Road, and then go east from there to the wastewater plant. So that's south of the cemetery. The potable water line will connect to 16th Avenue, Avalon Woods. So that's where the potable water line will go, and that's about 7,300 linear feet. And I mentioned these because they're off-site improvements. There will be a lot of this going on inside. We just want to make you aware of the off-site improvements. There may be oversizing required with those, I'm not sure. So that may be a future cost. There's nothing planned yet with the pipes, but they may ask them to oversize them if there's more capacity needed for that area of the city. So I'm going to just go into summary, then recommended motion. Actually, I'm going to skip this because this is essentially repeating what Francis has said. Our recommendation is to to approve the ordinance on first reading. When we come back for second reading, that's when you'll be adopting it. If there's no additional direction from the commission that requires additional review time and exchanges with the applicant, we intend to bring this back to the commission on May 13th at 7 p.m. And that completes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. All right, this time we'll move to public comment. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this agenda item have 3 minutes to do so. Go ahead and start a queue. Don't be shy. Come on now. Yep. Did you come in
How
late?
y'all doing?
Yeah, can we, and anybody else come in? You're a reporter in the back, so you're not going to talk. Did you want to, will you just stand up and let our clerk swear you in?
Okay.
State your name, please, for the record.
Brent Shaw.
Do you hereby swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You have been
Yes.
Go ahead.
How you doing, man?
One.
I
Wonderful.
met you at the
Yes,
other deal. So my name's Brent Shaw, and I live next to the property where the development is going to go on. And my biggest concern is that, you know, I've been in construction for about 33, 34 years. I was in the villages for 17 years. And, you know, I know these guys are saying, you know, 40 years, 50 years, and I don't believe it's going to take that long. We all live here. We all know what's going on. We see how fast the development is going on, you know, on the new construction. 2-3 years. I mean, I don't know how many homes has been built, but it's going pretty fast. And trust me, I know all about construction. I'm 17 years down, and I work with DOT now, and I worked for Alachua County for 10 years. So I know about construction and the homes and stuff like that. So, you know, I oppose the construction in front of my house, obviously. And, you know, I just, you know, the 40, 50 year thing, I don't agree with it. I think it's going to go a lot faster than that. And, like I told you before, you know, I feel like, you know, I guess I'm going to have to sell my home because I moved out here to be in the country, you know, and now I'm going to have houses right in front of me. So, I mean, you know, I don't agree with it. And I mean, you know, no hard feelings, but I just, you know, and there's a bunch of people that I know down the road. I got neighbors down the road that's very wealthy. They got sports cars. They got, you know, very, very, very wealthy. And they probably are not going to agree with either, but they probably wasn't sent the invitation or whatever you want to call it because they live down the road. You know, so, you know, I just want to make it clear that, you know, I just don't agree with it. So, you know, anybody got any questions for me?
No, sir. Public
I mean-
comments. This is your chance to talk to the
Okay,
commission.
okay.
It's not
I
a
just-
Q&A.
Well, okay, minute, 20 seconds. Okay, then. Okay, so when they go to building there, they're gonna mess up our road, you know, and then everybody down my road's gonna have to drive down that road. And I mean, I know the guys behind me, they go, oh, they're gonna do phases and this and that and the other. Oh, it's gonna be lime rock. It's gonna be this man right here drives my road every day. Every day he beats my 2 dogs every day, my 2 labs. So he knows He drives down the road, but he'd be driving down a Lime Rock Road, probably Lime Rock, or it's gonna be messed up and it's gonna be bad. So that's why I just oppose it. I moved out in the country, and I guess I'm going to sell the place, because I moved out in the country to be in the country, and, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. So, and I know everything's coming this way, and they talk 30, 40 years, but it ain't gonna take no damn 30, 40 years. It's gonna be faster than that. I mean, come on now, let's be real. I already know that. So anyways, that's all I got to say.
We appreciate you, sir.
Yep.
Other public comment?
How y'all doing?
Good, sir.
I was debating whether I want to get to speak because.
Could you give us your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Scott Cayley. Sometimes it feels like, you can read the room, you know how it's already going. But I moved out here, I bought land 17 years ago. I drove down Holder Grade, found it. It was perfect out in the woods. I didn't think it would take this long, or much longer before my lifetime of houses getting anywhere near me. I've got a bald eagle that I watch fly over my house now, out towards the development and hunting. They come every year, nest, have babies. Just some water cooler talk I heard when I was out and about was someone had made a mention that this zoning wouldn't impact schools. It's not our problem. Well, if charter schools pass, it is going to be a problem here local. My understanding of the charter school, how many people are allowed in? Well, how many of these people are going to buy the houses are going to be able to get the kids in if it's already at capacity? That's my biggest thing. It's growing fast. Roads are bad. Like I said, I live down Holder Grade. Your road department's getting busier because it used to be every time it stormed, it was graded right away. Now there's big bump holes. It takes a while for them to get out. So it's going to take a while. I'm against it. Like I said, I moved out here for the country. There's people say there won't be no light pollution. There'll be light pollution. You can't get away from when you start building that close, build up there. You start losing, like he said, moving in the country way. You can get to see stars. Another reason why I liked it out there. Hearing the coyotes howling, even though I know cattle people really probably don't like the coyotes.
I do.
But you can hear that area, you hear my dogs barking, chirping. Newberry is a small town, and that's why I liked it, and that's why I moved out here. And just the size of this, I didn't realize how far south it was going to go. You're pretty much going to double your population within that time. I think I don't know. I just didn't think it coming out that fast would be there for us. But I understand it. Like he said, I'll get my state retirement by about 2030. If it starts going, I'll be able to put mine up and move to a smaller town somewhere else. We have the Watermelon Festival. Well, you don't have many places you grow watermelons anymore. All the watermelons are brought in. I saw one thing in February. You want to feed, the Newberry wants to feed the country or whatever, the IFAS program that's coming out. Where it's not going to be grown around here if you turn everything into subdivisions. So that's my point. So.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Other public comment? Come on down, ma'am. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Marta Pedrosa. Got a couple of questions. This LAF for the seniors, who's going to run that?
And this is not a question and answer session, this is public comment. So it's your chance to talk to the commission and tell them your
I
thoughts.
live in Miami where there's a lot of LAFs, and they're ran by people in houses, and what they do is they steal from the senior citizens. I lived it with my dad. I lived it with my 23 aunts and uncles that were put in ALFs. I see it all the time. Over here, behind the gas company on State Road 27, there's a guy who has a house and he developed an ALF. Not even a doctor, doesn't have a degree on that. So believe me, that freaked me out. Because the state, okay, when there's a person in an ALF, they are not allowed, if they go to the hospital okay? They can be taken out of the LLF and left in the hospital, like they did with my father, without telling me. Because I was at work, and I only lived 4 blocks away from the ALF. And I put him in that one particularly so I could go in the morning before work, whenever I had a chance at lunchtime, and when I went home. And they'd send him to a hospital. So I'm not particular with ALF. I hate it. Because they have people that do not have degrees. They're not nurses. They're not nurse assistants. And that's one. Number 2, I moved out here. Okay, I have a home in Miami. But I spend more time here than I do there. Why do I have that home in Miami? Because when I go to Miami to see my doctors, that's where I go. Because what hotel is going to give me a room with 2 cats and my service dog? So I keep it because I paid it off. I worked very hard, paid it all completely. And then over here, now, the traffic. Like they said, the pollution. With all the traffic in there. I walk at Newberry Corners. I go there because there's lights. And I go 4 times a week at night. You should see the people running. It's supposed to be, 25 miles an hour?
I'll give you 10 more seconds, ma'am, to finish up the comments. But
Okay. Are you guys gonna have special policing instead of going 60, 80 miles an hour like I see them there?
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Other public comment.
I had questions, so I guess I can't.
You can read them into the record, ma'am. We just don't get into back and forth. But if you ask the questions, we'll do the best we can later on in the procedure to answer whatever we can answer.
Okay. Judy Baker. And I had heard a few times over the last year that his company was wanting to put like a cement plant or something in this area, as well as building trestles and trusses. And I was wondering, is this going to be taken out at a certain point? Because it's kind of in a housing development. And I know on one side, I don't know if it's still going to be done, but they were going to put a water park and a campground and everything. Are they going to be wanting to be around a big, huge plant or something? Just kind of questions as to what's going on with that.
Thank you, ma'am. Other public comment. Come on down, ma'am. Well, let's go ahead, just to make sure we've covered all the bases.
Thank you. Tiffany McClendon.
Do you hereby state, do you hereby swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
You have to do this.
Thank you. So, I live not too far from this development.
Yeah.
I live not too far from this development. I have the privilege every day to drive down a Lime Rock Road that is on either side with your cattle. And I love it. I absolutely adore where we live. I know this is going to affect Newberry. I know it's going to change Newberry. I don't want change as much as I know it's going to come. But I will say that I respect this as much as I don't want it. I respect that the Norfleets are doing it. You didn't sell it. You didn't give it to some big developer.
Can you keep your
I'm sorry.
keep
So you didn't
comments up
say
here
it.
so that we
Sorry.
can hear them?
So you didn't sell it. You didn't give it to some big developer, and you absolutely could have. So my trust is going to be that the developer is from Newberry, knows Newberry, and only wants the best for Newberry. I know this is going to pass. And I'm probably going to enjoy some of the things that happen, as much as I'm going to complain along the way. But, so I guess I'm just on the fence with this. But the biggest thing is I have to respect somebody who has the land and it's been in their family. I have to respect them to be able to do what they want on their land. We bought in the country, so if I wanted to do something on my land, I could. So as much as I don't want it, I have to respect the fact that they're doing it, and they're going to know what, they're going to listen to the community and do what's best for Newberry. Thank you.
Well, you're the most honest fence rider we've ever had, so we appreciate it. I think we may have a video problem. I think the camera for YouTube is locked on the screen, and it's not going back and forth. I've got a couple of folks. Can you just check it? If it's locked, it's fine. Okay. Oh, yeah. You got it on the presentation up there? Can you break it off so folks can see who's doing the talking? Any other public comment?
Can I have another minute and a half?
No, sir, not now. At the end of the night, you can. At the end of the presentation, you can. Other public comments for the first time? Okay, we're going to move back to the quasi. Applicant, did you hear anything that you want to cross-examine from the presentation?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Staff, did you hear anything that you want to cross-examine?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John Paul Perez again. I didn't have any rebuttals or clarifications I needed to make with the applicant. I did want to address some of the public comments that I was able to address in advance of the board trying to address them. One of the questions was regarding the Norfleet Industrial property that's separate from this request. It is south of this property on the east side. But it is a wholly separate request, and as it's proceeding, I don't think it's intended to be temporary in any way, so.
And for that, on that point, the applicants for the RV park came and gave public testimony that they were satisfied with the berm and, what's the word I'm looking for? Landscape vegetation, and they thought it would be compatible.
Exactly, yeah. And so the RV park, Dave McDaniel with M3 Development did come in and give his support for the Norfleet Industrial Park. And that project seemed more of like a status inquiry for the RV park, and that's currently in hiatus at the moment. So they have their special exception approval. They're just waiting for closing on a contract so they can proceed with that. That completes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that brings us to members of the board. Through the chair, questions for staff, applicant, Commissioner Farnsworth.
In regards to the amount of development per year, can that change, or is it written in stone that that's the amount of construction they can do?
So right now, the city doesn't have a policy regarding any sort of throttling of development. It has been a topic we've been looking into. It is not something that I think at this time city staff is comfortable applying to a single developer and looking at a more holistic for the city for what the state calls smart growth or just managing growth generally. So,
But John Paul, speak to the commission though about the phases and the plats and the amount of communication that's coming back, because I think one of the main concerns, we heard it tonight, was the conception that if this board says yes, the applicant can build 4,500 homes as fast as they can build them, and that's not my understanding. So they're half phases, those phases are attached to plats. They don't get the rights until the plat is passed. So there's going to be a constant level of communication. And if I'm saying this wrong, interrupt. But
you nailed it. No, yeah, it's incremental development in the form of phases. Each phase has its own entitlement that needs to come before the board. I can tell you currently that there's not enough capacity on US 27 for this project at build out, and there's definitely not enough wastewater treatment capacity for this project currently or at build out. So there are limiting factors to the pace at which this development can proceed. On top of that, we're taking an application from someone that's currently building in the city of Newberry right now, and their output is, and Brian, I'm going to ask Brian to correct me if I'm incorrect about this, but they do about 50 certificates of occupancy a year. Does that sound correct? If that. So we're looking at a developer that does less than 50 homes a year. And so you're not going to see a sudden change. He's going to have to hire and train and get all these tradesmen up to snuff with their process. Every contractor is different, but I just think output, limiting infrastructure, and the whole entitlement process is in place. And so that puts in milestones for the development as it proceeds that allows the conversation about the development to continue. And so if, say, phase one goes ahead and they are able to do it in 6 years, given good market conditions, and 6 years is the phase schedule for this project, then perhaps, yeah, you would not have any sort of complaints or grumbles and everything's progressing normally. But say it goes a little bit quicker and the commission's like, let's pump the brakes on this. Can you come back to us in 3 years when we have the capacity or we have the facilities to support your development, or the staff to actually, Tripp's a local developer that, has demonstrated that he works with the city to accommodate city needs. I don't believe, and Tripp is an individual, and this is land, and land transfers from individual to individual. I don't have a crystal ball to predict anything.
But
to
the
that nature.
PD would follow, even if the land transfers to someone else. The PD and the limitations follow.
Correct. Yeah, all that runs with the land. So, yeah.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner? Because to me, the plat is a very important part of this that we haven't really focused on.
So, we're expanding our sewer capacity now. Would that be enough to handle all these homes? Or
Well, the applicant has to get all the studies before they come in for the next plat. And part of those studies would be transportation, sewer, water, all those capacities. So if they can't hit the capacity or we run out of capacity, then we wouldn't be able to give them the next plat because there's no more capacity. And they would have to have all of those reports before and prove that, okay, all right, we're going to add the capacity, we're going to do this, X, Y, and Z. And is it eight plats and 8 phases? Are they concurrent, the number of plats?
You're correct.
So
Mr.
you're
Mayor.
looking at roughly 500 plus homes per phase, a little over 500. And I know they're all kind of somewhat different, but that's a different way of conceiving it than saying 4,500 homes tonight, right? No, it's roughly 500 per phase, and there's a conversation and a whole lot of studies that have to be done before you move to the next phase.
But with the expansion of our sewer plant that we're working on now, how far along would be able to, what phase would that be able to handle?
Mike?
Mr. Mayor, that depends, because that expansion that we're planning will take us to 1.2 million gallons per day of capacity, and 0.175 of that is reserved for Archer, so that gives the city a little over 1 million gallons per day of capacity. And the math on that says that it should support a little over 4,000 equivalent residential units before an expansion is planned. This development by itself is a little over 4,000 residential units. So our treatment plant wouldn't handle this development by itself without expansion if no other houses connected to it. And we think there are already existing flows and there are other developments that are planned. Our planned expansion is anticipated at our current growth rate to last 20 to 30 years, depending on the growth rate. And in that period of time, we'll work on an expansion plan and garnering the revenue for the expansion. And this development and every other development in town will pay those cap charges or impact fees so that we will have those revenues. And we'll continue to expand our treatment facilities just in time. We don't want to build them too early where our residents are paying debt service before the capacity is needed. Don't want to build them too late where the commission is put in the position of saying, we'd like to approve this development, but we can't. We want to make sure we bring the capacity on just in time. for the development that it will serve. But specifically to your question, our treatment plant expansion wouldn't serve this entire development, but we should bring expansions online in time as this development moves along over the next 40 to 50 years.
And I don't know whether John Paul can answer this or not, but are they planning on having natural gas there in this development?
I think the natural gas company is planning to serve this development, but I think that's really, it's not a required taking. I think that's
Yeah, I
the
was just kinda
developer's
curious.
choice. I have not heard specifically from the developer that they're planning for it, but I'm certain it's a conversation.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Clark, were you reaching? No? Other questions?
Yeah.
Commissioner Maison.
I have no doubt that it's going to be a phenomenal development with the North Fleets. Would I prefer to see cattle? Absolutely. Grass? Absolutely. The only concern that is there, I'll ask you the question first. Is there another route leaving this development of 45, 49 homes?
There are two ingress egress on Northwest 46th Avenue, and I forgot the volume on US 2741. I believe it's a total of 3 ingress and egresses planned. There may be more. Those are dependent on the US 2741 corridor on the Florida Department of Transportation's access management standards. There was talk or discussion of, and as you saw with the wastewater line, easements needed to be obtained for connection to Northwest 266th Street, which becomes County Road 337, which would be on the southwest area of the property or project area. And that is not something that is included in the development order at this time, and so it's not something I can say is confirmed that will occur. The wastewater lines are there and the easements will be there, but at this time there is no driveway connection there.
Okay, so I did a little math here. So there's 15 subdivisions in the city of Newberry currently that has 2,700 homes combined. They're scattered throughout the city of Newberry. So we're going to be putting 4,900 homes on this property, and the only way to get in and out of there is State Road 45. That's my only concern. 46. That's, I mean, what are the plans just in case we have an emergency evacuation?
That's a valid concern because
that's a huge concern of mine. I mean, I know there's land set aside for schools, there's land set aside for emergencies, future, but I mean, my biggest concern is.
Well, and Mr. Mayor, I think that that while currently the only major corridor that directly connects to this development is State Road 45 US 2741, but there would be multiple points of connection coming to it, so it won't be one gateway in and one gateway out. I think 46th Avenue connects to 2741, and then there are probably 2 or 3 other connections that will occur. Furthermore, this development is extending utility infrastructure and roadway to its southwest corner. Actually, it's extending the utility infrastructure all the way to State Road 26 to the southwest, and the roadway is extending to the southwest corner of the development so that it can be extended out to State Road 26 by future development that fills in from the south or from the west.
So there will be a potential future truck pass that connects to 26?
Staff's plan is for an arterial connector running from State Road 45, 2741, running west and south through this development, coming out the southwest corner of this development, and then extending down to State Road 26. So it will be an arterial road that kind of runs through the northwest quadrant of the city. Is the is the master transportation plan for that portion of our community. I don't think that we necessarily consider it a bypass, but I think as our community grows to the north, that having ways to get out of the northern parts of town without going through downtown is probably desirable. I think most communities that are growing make those types of transportation decisions, and that we're planning for that with our transportation master plan.
What phase would that be?
I don't know from the phasing map. I mean, you can see to the lower left-hand part of the screen. You see that little, it looks like, what state does that look like? Oklahoma? Down at the very bottom? There you go. He got it. So whatever, that's where the utilities will extend out, and actually from that point, they're gonna go due south to hit State Road 26 and then connect up with the wastewater plant and connect up with the city's existing water system. And then the roadway corridor has yet to be defined, but the overall plan is for that roadway to extend out to State Road 26, potentially northwest 266, or which is an existing road today, or potentially somewhere west of 266 on an undefined roadway corridor.
Is there a way to put that into a motion when we make the decision? I would feel more comfortable knowing that that's going to exist. I mean, we're talking 4,900 homes. We're not talking 300 or 800. And I mean, as I know later on, you guys ain't looking at it like this. But if we do have a disaster of some sort and people need to get out of the city, this is a discussion, right?
No, well, not yet. So right now, we're just into questions, so we'll have
That's just
deliberations later on.
One of my concerns. That's it.
Right.
I mean, everything
So
else I think is beautiful, but I mean, 4,900 homes. And
Is it-
State Road 45 is the only way in and out. That's
4,500 homes.
That's it.
You could-
4,500 homes.
Okay.
That's fine.
No, I'm just making sure we're being clear, because I thought you said 4,900.
I said 45 or 49, but I didn't.
45. And what you're talking about when we get deliberations is adding another road for like trucks to get out?
No, connective road from the back of this subdivision. Hill Plantation has how many? And they don't have half. I don't think they have 2,700.
Okay.
This is 4,500. And we only have roads coming out to 45, which if we were to evacuate the city or evacuate that, if something happens in that particular subdivision.
Right. Let me get through the questions,
Yeah.
and then we get back to deliberations. We'll
Yeah,
come and kick
that's
this around. Is that, you had any more questions?
That's it.
Any, Commissioner Farnsworth?
Have we made any progress with whoever has the electrical rights out there about us obtaining them?
Mr. Farnsworth, our conversations have been on. Our conversations with Central Florida Electric have really been focused on the southwest portion of town, not the northwest portion of town. They expressed reluctance to do that type of transfer in the time frame of our existing territorial agreement, which was 30 years from 5 years ago, so about 25 years from now. They indicated that that would be an appropriate time to have those conversations. They said on the southwest side of town, they'd be willing to have them now, but for massive citywide type of conversations, they said that they weren't entertaining those, that they had entered into that agreement 5 years ago in good faith, and they weren't interested in making those changes to the northwest.
Okay. Other questions? I had one for you, John Paul. So when you were explaining the difference between the developer's agreement and the developer's
Order.
Yes. We shifted from 1 year, I thought we were having reviews every 2 years, and now is it every 1 year? Or is that for parts of it, we're reviewing every 1 year, and other parts, we have a biannual or every other year review? Or is everything down to every single year we're reviewing the progress of how it's going?
The Florida statutes state every 12 months, the development agreement must be reviewed for, satisfying standards. I copied the exact language. So
Is that, and previously we had talked about every 2 years we were going to undergo a review to address these concerns about the speed, the growth, the capacity, all those kinds of things. So that's what caught my attention.
Oh,
Was that
gotcha.
we had been talking about reviews every 2 years.
Yeah.
Is that because of a state statute says we have to do it every 12 months? Seems like by the time that it would take us to review it, we'd be starting over, getting ready for the next review.
Yeah, and that's, hopefully that gives you perspective as to what the development agreement does. It's kind of like it's a punch list for active construction for infrastructure, really.
Okay.
So as things are being constructed and completed, you're checking them off. And that development agreement probably gets checked more than once every 12 months because it's like a punch list for active construction
So-
of infrastructure.
What is getting reviewed every 2 years? So the developer's agreement is every 12 months, and that's just kind of a 20,000 foot level. Here's the agreement. And then every 2 years, it's a deep dive into, okay, this is how much progress you made. This is how much progress you think you're going to be making in the next 2 years. When do we need to get started on these studies? Am I understanding this right?
I'm going to have to defer. I've only been here for 2 years, so I haven't hit that benchmark yet. And from the way it's being described, it sounds like a concurrency review, just making sure that all of our development, not just one development agreement, is keeping up with the capacity of our
And I'm not trying to
services.
derail us. I'm just,
Yeah.
it was a 2 year review before, and now it's a 12-month review. And I want to make sure that everybody is not always spent 24 hours a day, we're just reviewing the same thing.
No,
So
no.
do we have a different answer on your end? Slightly? Okay.
And I mean no disrespect, but I may cause a little trouble, Mr. Mayor.
You don't have any history of doing that.
I know.
Yeah.
So when we do large development,
Could you give us your name?
oh, I'm sorry, Patrice Boys, I'm agent for the applicant, and I'm a land use attorney. So when we do large developments, frequently, there are development agreements that are entered into, and they're not the statutory type. I don't know of too many local governments that do the statutory development agreement because there are all these checklists and things, and it hampers and hems in the local government as much as it does the developer. So there's going to be a series of development agreements between the Norfleets and the city of Newberry as we go through phases and subphases. And remember, subphases and phases can happen simultaneously, different orders. It doesn't go shoebox A, shoebox B, shoebox C, right? So all these timing questions are a little bit more nuanced. But back to my point, if we could get rid of this idea that it's a statutory development agreement, it would make all of our lives a lot easier, I promise you. We can talk about that between now and second reading, but I prefer we took that out of, if there's anything in the ordinance that speaks to that. I don't think there is, but we can talk with staff further between now and second reading. It's
Okay.
really form,
Right.
so.
And I guess my only thought was I'm real comfortable with 2 years. I think that's a pretty good time to come and check in. You got the phases, but then every 2 years you're checking in, see how everything's going. And I'm not going to speak to the statute. There's nothing in there right now, but to me, it seems like a little onerous on our staff to say that you're going to do this every 12 months.
Right.
Like I say, it takes us 2-3 months to review something. And by the time we get done reviewing, it'd be time to gear up for the next review. So I just don't want to put us in the bind right now or say we're going to do this every 12 months. I was good with the 2. I'm still good with the 2. I think that's a great other thing to have in there, right?
Right. I agree.
My other question, John Paul, was, and this is getting really deep into the weeds here, but I thought that we had just redid our parks to shift it from a half a mile to a mile. So, but we're still in this PD, you have to have a park every half a mile?
So that's a requirement that's not in our code and is unique to this plan development. It was every home will be within a quarter mile of a park.
Quarter mile of a park?
Quarter mile of a park.
In the PD or in our?
Just in the PD, just in the plan development. That was changed to, yes, sorry, I'm going to get to the change. It was changed in second reading from a quarter mile to a half mile. That's reflected in the text amendment that the board approved. So It's called out there. It's also reiterated here in the development order.
So the change I'm remembering went from a quarter to a half. And
Yes.
so this is going to a half.
Yes, there'll be half within this plan development only.
Okay. All right, that was my question. So you had a question, Commissioner?
No, I don't. I got a comment. It's like, I'm in Marion Oaks all the time appraising houses, helping my wife. And 484, I'm pretty sure is a state road down there. And I'm sure the people in Marion Oaks thought that, hey, this is how it's going to be. Well, I've watched over the last 6 years where have moved this road and added, they voted down the bypass that they were going to have there, but or the state decided not to fund it. Things are going to change in the next 50 years. Who knows? When you're talking about traffic and access, we don't know there ain't going to be a bypass going through Archer or around the whole city or the outside of, we're looking way out there when you're talking about access in the development because of emergency situations, and that's what I do have my reservations there because DOT is going to make it whatever it is to make it safe, and they're not going to pass this thing. I guess we haven't heard any negative from DOT, and I'm sure that's probably part of their formula because of emergency situations. So I don't see where that is where we should be looking like that's a problem. I don't see that.
All right, let's hang on one second. We really want to get to deliberations, but let me do the last two steps of this process first. And so, did you like to make a final argument? No? Yes? Can you come up to the mic there?
I gotta unfold.
Yes, all right.
I couldn't sit in this voices row because that was coach, and I got in Mr. Norfleet's row because it was business class for the 6'6" and above. To Commissioner Mazon's point, and I'll try to get my greenest pointer here, and talk about something that Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Mazon were talking about. In the biannual reporting, because you want to look at roads, water, sewer, electric, concurrency, schools, and those sorts of things, that's the point in time where it would be divulged whether or not additional roadways were needed. So you don't need to put a specific condition or motion in there because the PD anticipates future development over the next 50 years. And I'm going down the west side here, and you can see there's a proposed connection here, there's a proposed connection here, and down in the southwest corner that Mr. New was talking about, there's a connection here. This is going to happen sooner because that's the route for the water and the sewer lines coming in here. And as we go through our biannual reporting, and we're looking at the connections here on Newberry Road, on 2741, coming into the city of Newberry is what I meant to say. As we look at this, DOT may point out, 10 years into the process or 12 years into the process that we need more of a connection going here. So we may get that, what I'm going to call northwest quadrant sort of bypass that would happen in there naturally as part of the biannual reporting. Certainly all the homes that are coming out here, if that's the only route, and if these homes are coming out, they go to that road, DOT may opine earlier in the process that you need to make that connection to a second major arterial collector like 2741 now, consider connecting to State Road 26. So that's built in there, and as Ms. Boyce stated, phases do not have to necessarily run sequentially. You might do phase 1, phase 2, phase 7A, and that might pick up that connection. So there's nothing in the PD that prohibits earlier connections of infrastructure and necessary elements like water, sewer, roads, and things like that. So that's anticipated that could happen, and it's a part of the DOT conditioning that they say, keep in touch with us, keep coming back in that biannual sort of increment, and let us know if, you're planning additional roadway connections. So it's already been sort of thought out and baked in there.
Okay. Thank you. John Paul, do you want to give a final argument?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, before I ask the city attorney, I'm going to rewind, and Commissioner Mazon, do you have any ex parte communication that you need to disclose since you missed the beginning there?
I do apologize for my tardiness, but I spoke with Northfleet for a little bit.
Okay.
And we were, it was on a different project past, and then we tried to go into, I was going to go into this one with him, but I ended up having to cut it short because of blocking one of his customers with my beautiful brown truck. And so I ended up cutting that conversation short, and that's it.
Madam Attorney, do you have any follow-up questions?
What was the content of your conversations? Was it different than anything that you've heard here?
Well, that conversation never even got this far.
Okay.
I mean, he made a compliment on my brown uniform, but that was about it. But it never got this far.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the help. Make sure we got it all covered. Okay, now, Madam Attorney, would you please advise decision-making bodies applicable law and factual findings that must be made to approve or deny the application?
Any decision you make today will need to be based on competent, substantial evidence.
All right. Okay, now what we've all been waiting for, now we can deliberate. So, did Jerry get your concerns?
My concerns?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. He said it's already there, so I don't see why we can't put it into a motion.
But
Just
I'm
to
not
kinda
exactly,
ease-
can you explain, because I'm not exactly sure that I understand what the
Me?
concern is. Yeah,
What my concern is?
So I get that you're worried about an emergency and having to evacuate, right? And you want more points in and out? Or are you asking for a whole separate road?
No, so see those connecting roads that he set up there, the black dots, right? Those are gonna be, once he builds this, it's gonna lead to trees and fields, right? Until
It's gonna lead
DOT, right?
No, I'm not at trees and what? You're saying, because right
Okay,
now
no,
they'll
no,
go
I'll
up
make
to
it simple.
27.
Look,
Yeah.
right here and right here, correct? Is where you
Right.
said future
you add to the
developments
west.
when they add to the
Right.
west, right?
Gotcha.
My concern is this, as they build this out, right? He said DOT may come back and say, you're gonna need another way out here because of the congestion of residents, correct? And that's speculations or facts? That's my concern.
Okay.
I need facts. And if I can't get a fact on that, then I
Yeah,
don't feel
go back to the
comfortable saying, hey, look, let's go ahead and put 4,500 homes in here with the hopes of DOT putting a future connection.
I think it is a fact.
Mr. Mayor, I would not qualify that as speculation. I would qualify that as standard engineering procedure, that they will continuously monitor the conditions through their level of service reports and their volume to capacity ratios to look at the appropriate times to make a formal recommendation to the developer that it's time for a new connection. So it's not a speculation, it is a matter of fact, how they continuously monitor through their annual reporting procedures.
So when they make a recommendation to the developer, what if the developer says, just saying no?
Well,
I don't see it.
Did we say no?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the course then of action is, they're not making that comment on a Post-it note to Tripp, they're making that comment to you as the governing body that oversees that zoning law.
I thought you said developer, I didn't know he said to us. I heard him say, I thought you said they would make a recommendation to the developer.
Well, it is in fact the developer, but you are in a party group with this. The state of Florida has jurisdictional control of the roads. You are the overseers of the law of zoning in this community. You are the persons granting permits to Mr. Norfleet. So there is a sharing of information and kind of an equilateral triangle. If the DOT says something or the Department of Education says something, that you're party to that as the enforcers of this zoning. So you will know that response because when he does his annual reporting, there will be a response from DOT, Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Education. That is part and parcel to the continuous monitoring process that occurs over the life cycle that runs with the land.
Which is why it's so important to hammer that home about the plats, right? Because I think that in the P and Z and the first, and we were talking about future land use, we kept using the phrase phases, right? And two, he's not in the room right now, that gentleman's concerned, well, the phases can run, we've heard often, right? Well, it's going to take 20 years and then they get done in 10. That's not what's happening here. These phases are attached to plats, And when they come back in for the next phase to get their next plat, which is where they can actually start building, they'll have to have all those studies and all that information and then say all of those concerns are. So they could have the phases pre-approved, but they don't get to phase 3 or phase 4 until they come back in with those studies and say, here's our traffic, this is what it is. And at that point, you would say, well, look, FDOT is saying you've got too many people, we don't have a way out, so we're not going to give you the permit. And they would say that to Mike, and then Mike would say, well, we have to say no because they haven't hit. And that could be for transportation, it could be for schools, it could be for environmental concerns, it could be for any and all those things that they've cleared today. They will have to continue to clear those to get to Plat 2, Phase 2, Plat 4, Phase 4. Does that make?
Well, you've been here for 10 years, buddy. Give us some time for me.
No, it's a good question. I mean, this is because this is going to be the continued questions that we get over and over again. Yeah, so it's always good to keep on. Yeah,
Shifting in size.
Commissioner Coleman.
The economy's gonna dictate a lot of this too, you know, I mean, I hope this don't happen to the North Leaks, but I mean, we have an 07 come in here, this thing might stall for an extra 2 or 3 years, you don't know. And it's no different than this in and out of getting in the subdivision, you don't know, you don't know what the state's gonna do. Well, I mean, they might go in, so like I said, put a bypass around Newberry, I mean, there's so many things for it being 50 years. So,
Yeah, I think we heard a comment tonight about, how many houses have been built in the last 3 years. And I think that number, Newberry builds between 150 and 180 houses a year. And if you go on Facebook, you'll hear 12,000, right? Well, most of what you're seeing built was approved 15, 20 years ago, and it sat stagnant for that time, to your point, some longer than that. We've still got some that has been approved, but nothing's happening. So those will ebb and flow. But if this moves forward tonight, what you'll hear is 4,500 homes. What will happen is probably 50 houses in the first year of them getting started, right? Because we, on our side, on the staff side, we really can't handle much more than 200 permits, building permits, all that kind of stuff in a year anyway. So even if the developers could do more, well, you guys would have to decide, do we staff up to handle more or can we not handle that? But on our end, we can approve about 200, we can handle about 200 houses a year. So people can get 5,000, right? That's fine. But right now at our current staffing level, we can do about 200. And I don't know that we've hit 200 in 1 year. One year we've hit 200. 1 year we've hit 200. So, I mean, that's kind of the perception versus the reality of it. I understand the fear of this all going to happen in 10 years. But you guys have built into this PD checkpoint after checkpoint after checkpoint to make sure that doesn't happen, because our wastewater can't handle this development by itself. So we're going to need those checkpoints to make sure we're doing our responsible growth practices so that we don't get in a situation where we're telling people no because there is no sewer or water. Other deliberations. Commissioner Martin?
So I was writing down comments from, as the citizens were coming up, and these are mostly just bullet points. I'll just read kind of through them. One of the best things that I like about the plan is it actually locks up a considerable amount of property all at one time. And when it does that, it's planned, it's kind of understood ahead of time, and it's a known factor. Something we really haven't had with all the other developments that have been going on within the city. You've got 200 here, you got 200 over there. This sort of, as we were talking just now, is we have these periodic checkpoints that address the schools, that address the emergency facilities, and it does, I think, in the best way possible, respect the property rights that the landowner has, as well as the interactions and the interfaces that it has with our community also. Because we don't have all the infrastructure to handle this, those are periodic governors that keep this from spiraling out of control, especially when we have to look and we have to talk with DOT, and we have to talk with the county as if it's something water related. So there are a lot of built-in little checkpoints and governors that keep it from just going crazy. And we're trying to speculate and talk here like we're looking at this in a vacuum, but there are so many factors. And I know the average citizen isn't going to really think about this, and that's sort of on us to worry about up here with our education and working with the staff of how all these little nuances kind of work and play in together. I love the fact that we have multiple types of homes in here. You have 4,500 homes. When you start looking at the different designs that we have, it's big, it's little. It's going to, I think, serve our community very well. We'll be able to get the new first-time home buyers. We'll get the established, families that are coming in here. And a lot of these developments that we've had in here don't have any commercial element at all. The untold truth here in government is residents don't really pay the tax burden. It actually costs the city more money to build more houses. So it's not really even in our commercial viable interest to just put houses up all over the place, because the demand on services is regularly technically greater than the amount of money that they pay. So we don't have any of the commercial stuff that this actually brings to the table. The only place that it really brings all that together is the current property that this developer is actually making over in Country Way, where they're kind of building all that stuff in together. So that excites me, and I enjoy kind of looking forward to just putting something together for the foreseeable commissions. We're not going to be here in 20 years or 30 years, except Monty. But we on this commission did not have the plans laid out for us like I think that we are doing and respecting for the future commissions. And we like to talk about standing on the shoulders of people that did things right in our community. And I hope in 20 or 30 years that people will look back on what we are doing as it relates to this development and think they're doing the same thing, and that hopefully we're providing that for them. So that's my take.
Thank you, sir. Other deliberations? I just say I would echo those sentiments, and I think Miss Tiffany said respect a local person keeping this, and I think that my own shock value when you first hear 4,500 homes, oh my goodness, right? That's doubling the size of Newberry. But the more of these meetings that we've sat through, I mean, the property owner could break it up and sell it off 200 acres here, 300 acres there, and you get other people doing hodgepodge piecemeal things. This does allow us to think about something collectively and holistically and say, okay, how do we want this to look? How do we want this to function with the rest of the city? And that's not an opportunity that we usually get, because we're usually looking at the 250 homes, and that's all it's going to be, 250 homes. And
There are 3 different models, and
yeah,
different colors, the same
right.
freaking
So this has been an interesting evolution for me, having the exact same reaction that most people have. 4,500 homes to, well, actually, this is a better way to move forward. Commissioner Coleman.
Well, and also having a local builder here, he's hiring everybody local. I mean, let's go back to that again too. That's where I'm at. Is there's a lot of people graduating out of that high school to go to work for the Northleets, and it might not just be for building, even out there on their farms. It's inevitable. I do hate it that the people that have moved in there 10, 15 years ago, I don't know which one, I see where they're at. But unfortunately, we're in an area that, and I really believe that they come here is because of us right here. We're not, we do things that are conservative, but hopefully, I believe they think that we're, responsible. And, but it's inevitable. If it wasn't the Norfleets, it would be one of these national builders that would be coming in here and doing the same thing, and they're not sitting there going, you know what? Y'all need a driving range? Yeah, let's go see the Norfleets. Y'all need to donate to this sport or that sport? I mean, you'll see them there. I mean, they're local. That's why I'm really, really for this. So.
Okay, no more deliberations? Then I'll have a motion to, wait, I'm sorry, did we need to have the whole 12-month review? Does that need to be an amendment to the motion? No, it's not in the actual PD?
No, it's not.
Okay, so between second reading, we'll just delete that slide. Yes? Everybody's in agreement? Okay, so I'll have a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Clark, a second from Commissioner Coleman.
Come on now, I didn't get mine.
I ain't forgot you. I ain't forgot you.
Okay, all right.
Any comments, question on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, question on the motion on the floor. There you
I
go.
appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Never forget about you.
I mean, all you guys know that Publix is gonna be coming in here, and
I had heard.
come on now. We all know, sitting right here in front of us, we all know what goes on after Publix comes here. Now, come on now.
Pub subs.
Yes.
Yes.
So the 40, 50 homes or whatever, I'm gonna say it again. It's gonna go way faster than what you guys anticipate. I promise you. I promise you. You took my thunder, by the way, with the routes. I done thought about that. I appreciate you, because you don't. That's exactly what I was gonna say as well. I mean, and we all know revisions. Do y'all all know what revisions is? The plans, revisions.
We do.
Okay, so I mean, trust me, I do know what revisions is. So I mean, they could say, we're going to do this and do that. Oh, we got a revision, and then y'all got to go back, think about it, whatever. And then this thing's going to go a lot faster than what you guys. I'm just telling you, I already know it is. When Publix gets built, it's going to be wide open. I'm just telling y'all. I know you local. I live right down the road too. And I'm going to be right across the street and probably going to have to sell my home, but it's fine because I moved out here to be in the country. I just want to speak my piece, and I hate it. I mean, it may take 15 years, maybe 10, 15, but I'm going to have houses in front of me, so I'm probably going to check out. Yep.
We hate to hear it. Other public comment. You're not really public, but we'll give you 3 minutes too.
Like I said, I just wanted to speak, appreciate y'all hearing it tonight, but going on, Honorable Mayor there to one of the commissioner's ideals, like you said, we do have the south route for the sewer that we got planned, and I think y'all have got a subdivision that's in that route that y'all are looking to plan now, that where that road could hit right at 26. And it may be at 500, might be 1,000, maybe 2,000 homes before that's needed. But like you said, with our biannual reporting, you know what I mean, we'll be able to work with the city and the whole deal. And then, like you said, we're also going to build the commercial, probably be in the second phase, kind of what we've done out here at Country Way South. And our whole ideal is to create where, you can eat, work, live, and shop kind of where you're at. You know what I mean? And nowadays with the internet, I think being one of the largest jobs providers, it takes a lot of the pressure off the roads that we've had in the past. Sewer plant expansion, they're going to have to expand it, but for the last 20 years, as me as a builder in Newberry, we've been paying $3,500 to $4,500 a house to go toward sewer expansion, which we're seeing happen now. The stuff that's getting built now, everybody's paying expansion fees for it to be later on. So it's always been a event that Newberry's had to plan for over the years, and we've had smart people and stuff to stay in front of that thing. And kind of, one of our big deals to bring the whole thing in instead of bringing 200 acres in at a time is so the city would know where it was all going to be. And like I said, have time to plan for it, like you said, so you could actually plan that, hey, we know it is, instead of let's bring it in 80 acres here, 40 acres here, and like you said, that is it all spotted up, and you got no idea where this here, we can plan for the internal capture of the trips and everything else, and to get the roads around, and we've seen the spotted subdivisions, quite a bit, but the whole idea was to give the plan so the city would say, hey, we know this is coming, we can be looking at it, and that was one of our biggest things. And, a lot of the people spoke here tonight, I don't blame their opinion, but, we welcomed them to Newberry, and when they came, so we want to welcome some other people coming too, and like you said, we all came here from somewhere at some point, you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter when it was, we want to be a welcoming society for that deal. But like I said, I appreciate y'all sitting up here tonight and hearing it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. Other public comment? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll come back to the board. I had a motion from Commissioner Clark, seconded by Commissioner Coleman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And that takes us to comments, City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no comments this evening.
Thank you, sir. Madam Attorney.
Nothing from me.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Clerk.
Nothing for me, just, try to be, prepared to, take photographs.
That's right.
With the
Swearing in ceremony.
Yeah, that will be here with swearing in ceremony at 6 o'clock.
All right. 6 o'clock. 7 o'clock meeting, 6 o'clock swearing in ceremony. Commissioner Coleman, you got any comments? Commissioner Clark?
Yep, pray for our troops that are deployed, and God bless America.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Farnsworth? Commissioner Martin? Commissioner Mazon?
I'm good.
I had just hope everybody, I thank everybody for participating in the charter vote last week and the day before. The tally will happen on Wednesday in the municipal building, so we'll find out how everybody wants to move forward, and that will help us answer one of the pieces to these kinds of puzzles. So with that, we will move to, we have citizen comments. Anybody got anything last to say that you didn't get a chance to say already? Hearing none, we are adjourned.